It started with a laugh. Hers, not mine. The kind that slips out when you're texting someone who knows just how to get under your skin in that "God, I want you right now" sort of way. The kind I hadn't heard from Rachel in a long time. She was across the room, curled on the couch with her legs tucked up, wearing that oversized sweater that used to drive me wild. I was standing at the sink, rinsing dishes after dinner. It was a quiet Wednesday night. We weren't fighting. We weren't exactly close either. Just going through the motions. The laugh made me pause. I glanced over, saw her eyes glued to her phone, thumbs moving quickly, the faint flush on her cheeks. For a moment, I told myself not to care. Married people text. Friends joke. It was nothing. But something inside me, a whisper, a sting, said, "Look closer." She got up a few minutes later to take a shower. Left her phone face down on the coffee table. Normally, I wouldn't touch it. I'd trained myself not to. Boundaries, trust, respect. All those sacred marriage mantras. But that laugh? That flush. I picked it up. The lock screen lit up as I touched it. Notifications, nothing out of the ordinary. I hesitated, almost set it back down, until I noticed a small icon in the top corner, a secondary message app one didn't recognize. Not Messenger. Not WhatsApp. Something else. It was still open in the background. Curiosity isn't the right word. Desperation is closer. I tapped it. And there they were. Photos, messages, and one hotel reservation for Friday night. The photo hit first. Rachel in a red lace bra, one I didn't recognize, posed in a mirror, her expression sultry and playful, like she used to be with me. Sent just a few hours ago. Followed by, "Can't stop thinking about Monday." Round 2. The response came with a shirtless mirror selfie. A man with gym-sculpted abs, a familiar scar across his left shoulder. Ethan, her coworker. It felt like someone had grabbed my lungs and squeezed. My vision narrowed, my chest tight. I scrolled. I couldn't help it. Messages stretching back weeks. Plans. Inside jokes. Quick little midday updates. Pictures that made my stomach turn. Mentions of sneaking off during lunch breaks. Of how he fucks me like you never could. I didn't even realize I was sitting down until I heard the water turn off upstairs. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. My heart was hammering in my ears. My mouth dry. And still, I didn't move. I didn't scream. I didn't storm upstairs and confront her. I just sat there, shaking, staring at the blank television screen, trying to make sense of a marriage that had just detonated without warning. When Rachel came back downstairs, hair damp, wrapped in her robe, she looked at me and smiled. "Everything okay?" I don't know how I managed it, but I smiled back. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She leaned down and kissed the top of my head. The same lips that had been on him, no doubt. She smelled like lilac shampoo and betrayal. I watched her walk upstairs, slow and casual, and I swear to God, I had never hated and loved someone more in the same moment. The worst part? I didn't say a word that night. Not a damn thing. I barely slept. I laid beside her, rigid, listening to her breathing, wondering how many times she'd lied to my face. Every trip, every working late excuse, every time she came home glowing, saying she'd had a great day. Was I that blind? Or just too willing to believe the best in her? My mind spun in circles. How long had it been? Why him? What did he have that I didn't? And God help me, a part of me still wanted to believe there was an explanation. That maybe I'd misunderstood. That it was some sick prank or mistake. But the messages were too clear. The photos too raw. The reservation too real. Friday night. Room 502. Downtown. They'd planned another night together, right under my nose. Like our wedding vows were a joke. Like I wasn't even a consideration. By morning, I knew I couldn't ignore it. But I also knew I wasn't going to rage. No smashed phones. No screaming match. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of making me the villain in this story. I would wait. Watch. Plan. There's a different kind of power in silence. And I needed every ounce of it. Because part of me, the hollowed-out, heart-punched part, wanted to curl up and disappear. But I didn't. Instead, I made coffee, handed her a mug, and asked about her day like nothing had changed. She lied, of course. Said she had meetings all afternoon. I nodded, pretending not to notice the slight tremble in her voice. The way she avoided my eyes. And when she kissed me goodbye, I wondered if she knew. If she could sense that something in me had broken, and there was no putting it back together. By the end of that day, I had a plan. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. But I was absolutely going to make her regret underestimating me. Because the illusion was shattered, and I was done playing the fool. I hadn't spoken a word to Rachel in 2 days about what I found. 2 days of pretending, of tight smiles and nods and brushing fingertips, as if nothing had changed. But inside me, everything had. I was hollowed out, a man-shaped shadow drifting through his own life. I hadn't confronted her. Not yet. I couldn't explain why. Maybe because some sick part of me still hoped it wasn't real, that she'd confess, cry, beg, and I could decide what to do on my terms. But mostly, I just didn't want her controlling the narrative. I wanted to see what she'd do when she thought she was safe. She'd made it easy. Last night, she told me she might need to work late Friday, the same night as her little hotel getaway. She said it casually, eyes on her coffee, avoiding mine. I just nodded. My hands gripped the mug so tightly I thought the ceramic might crack. She left early this morning, humming to herself, a lightness in her step. I stood at the window and watched her car disappear down the street. And then I sat down, alone, until the knock came. Knock, knock. 3 sharp raps, precise. Not a neighbor, not a delivery. When I opened the door, I didn't expect her. Tall, sharp black blazer, burgundy lipstick, a face made for control. Her arms folded over a manila folder, knuckles pale from pressure. She looked at me with a stare that cut straight through my confusion. "You must be Jason," she said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. I didn't stop her. She didn't smile, didn't introduce herself. Just walked into my living room like she owned the oxygen and dropped the folder on the coffee table. "Your wife is sleeping with my husband." Just like that. I stood there, motionless, my throat dry, my stomach a twisting knot of nausea and adrenaline. "Ethan," she added. "Your wife's coworker. My husband." She turned to face me. Her gaze was steady, cold, composed. She wasn't here to fall apart. I sat down slowly, nodding once. "I know," I said. Her eyebrows lifted slightly, the first real reaction she'd given. "You do?" "Found the messages. Photos. Hotel room." She inhaled through her nose, a measured breath. "Good. Then I don't need to convince you." She tapped the folder. "Everything's in there. Screenshots, emails, even some GPS data, if you need timestamps. I've been compiling it for weeks." "You've known that long?" I asked, surprised. She nodded. "I had my suspicions. Ethan always had a wandering eye, but Rachel, she was careful, smarter than most. Slipped up once, a text to him while I was syncing our cloud accounts. That was all I needed." I opened the folder and skimmed the first page. My stomach clenched. There she was again, Rachel, naked this time, laughing into the camera, Ethan's hand clearly visible on her thigh. Jesus Christ. I shut it. I was going to confront her tonight, I muttered. "Lisa." She finally offered her name, gave a dry chuckle. "And do what? Shout? Cry? Ask why?" I clenched my jaw. "Maybe." She shook her head. "I've already done that. It gets you nowhere. They just deflect, gaslight, play victim. No, Jason, they need to feel it. Not just the guilt. Consequences." I looked at her, the pieces slowly forming. "What are you suggesting?" She leaned in slightly, her voice lowering. "We make them think we're screwing each other." I blinked. "Excuse me." Lisa sat back, crossing one leg over the other, entirely unfazed. "Not literally. Just enough to get in their heads. Make them wonder. Hurt them. Let them taste what betrayal really feels like." I didn't respond right away. My heart was pounding, but not from fear, from something deeper. A flicker of dark curiosity. Revenge. "They think they're clever," she continued. "But cheaters always are, until they get out-cheated." I shook my head slowly. "You really think they'd care? They already betrayed us." Lisa smiled for the first time. It wasn't warm. It was razor sharp. "Oh, trust me. They'll care. Cheaters don't want their toys broken, just yours." I let that sink in. It made a twisted sort of sense. "They deserve it," I muttered. Lisa nodded. "They do. But we're not just going to scream and cry. That's not justice. That's weakness. What I'm offering is precision." I looked down at the folder again. Photos, messages, lies stacked on lies. "Why me?" I asked. "Why come to me?" "Because I've been watching. And I saw something in your face the night Ethan kissed Rachel's cheek at the office party." She paused. "You didn't say a word. But you knew, didn't you?" I swallowed. "I think I knew long before I admitted it." "Then you're the right kind of man for this." Her voice softened just enough to sound like temptation. Let's hit them where it hurts, Jason. Make them sweat. Make them afraid. I hesitated. There was still that small part of me that wanted to believe I could salvage something, that this didn't have to turn into war. But that part of me was shrinking fast. And when she reached across the table, flipped open the folder to the final image, the one where Rachel was straddling Ethan in a hotel bed, biting her lip like she'd never done with me, something inside me shattered. I closed the folder, looked her in the eye. All right, I said. Let's do it. When Lisa said she had a plan, I thought she meant something simple, a public confrontation, maybe a staged leak of their messages. But no, what she wanted was far more deliberate, almost surgical in its cruelty. We met again the next evening, this time at a quiet corner table in a downtown bar. It was one of those low-lit places with whiskey shelves that looked like library stacks and a jazz playlist that tried too hard to feel nostalgic. She ordered bourbon neat. I went with coffee. I didn't trust myself with anything stronger. She slid another folder across the table, not photos this time, but notes, lists, outlines. She'd written it all down like a blueprint for revenge. I call it mutual exposure, she said, her eyes glinting under the amber light. We show them what betrayal looks like, from the outside. I opened the folder. At the top of the page, she'd written Phase 1, public doubt. Below that, bullet points, coffee shop sightings, social media posts, subtle touches, things designed not to prove anything outright, but to suggest everything. You want us to fake a relationship, I said slowly. Lisa's smile was small but dangerous. Exactly. Not over the top, just believable enough. We let their own paranoia do the heavy lifting. I leaned back, trying to process it. The idea was insane. Petty. Brilliant. I hated how much I liked it. They think they've been discreet, she continued. Ethan even told me once that he could write a book on secrecy. She rolled her eyes. So let's show them they're not half as clever as they think. I studied her for a moment. She was beautiful in a severe sort of way. Angular cheekbones, confident posture, the kind of woman who always looked like she was in control. But beneath the calm exterior, I could sense the same fire that burned in me. Betrayal turned into focus. And you're sure this isn't just revenge? I asked. Because that's a dangerous game to play. Oh, it's revenge, she said. But revenge can be productive. It can make a point. She sipped her bourbon and leaned in, voice lowering. Think about it, Jason. How long did Rachel make you feel invisible before you found out? How long did you beg for scraps of her attention while she was giving everything to him? Her words landed like punches I didn't see coming. She wasn't wrong. Don't you want her to see you again? Even if it's just to realize what she lost? I did. God help me, I did. I looked down at the list again. Fake dating. Subtle photos. Appear together in familiar places. It was bold. Cruel. The kind of thing I would have called childish a month ago. But now it sounded like justice. What happens when they notice? I asked. They will. And they'll unravel. People like Rachel and Ethan thrive on control. We'll make them lose it. Then, when they finally try to confront us. She paused, her eyes glinting with something sharp. We'll already have one. We sat in silence for a moment, the air between us heavy with unspoken anger. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Here, let's start simple. She leaned across the table, closer than before. The scent of her perfume hit me, cedar and something faintly floral. Warm, disarming. Smile, she said. Before I could react, she snapped a photo. The two of us sitting close, the kind of picture that could easily be mistaken for something intimate. She typed something quickly and showed me the screen, a mock social media post. Unexpected company. Guess I'm not the only one who prefers honesty. She didn't post it yet, but the implication was clear. You really thought this through? I said. I've had time, she replied, her voice steady. A lot of nights staring at the ceiling while my husband was out working late. You planned things in the dark, Jason. You know that now. I did. I'd spent my own sleepless nights doing the same, though until now, I hadn't known what for. There was a strange energy between us as the evening went on. We kept refining the plan, deciding which spots to visit first, how to make it look natural. But every so often, I'd catch her watching me, not with pity, but with something else. Recognition, maybe. You're calmer than I expected, she said at one point. If I let myself feel everything I want to feel, I'd burn the whole damn city down, I admitted. She nodded slowly. Good. Keep that fire. Just don't let it consume you before we're done. When we finally left, the city air was cool against my face. I walked her to her car, the conversation still buzzing in my head. She paused before getting in. Jason, she said, her voice softer now. You should know, this won't end clean. Once we start, there's no pretending it didn't happen. You ready for that? I hesitated. Thought of Rachel's messages. Her laughter. Her lies. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Lisa studied me for a long moment, then smiled, the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Good. I'll text you the first step. She slid into her car and drove away, leaving me standing on the curb, the tail lights fading into the dark. I stayed there for a long time, my heart hammering, the night pressing down around me. Somewhere between grief and fury, something new was taking root, something colder, sharper. By the time I walked back to my car, I realized what it was. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the one writing the next move. And God help Rachel and Ethan when they realized it. Lisa wasn't kidding when she said she'd text me the first step. The message came early Saturday morning, just a single line. Coffee at 10. Dress like you're trying, not like you care. That became her mantra for the next few weeks. Act natural, but look intentional. Be casual enough to pass as coincidence, yet calculated enough to sting. Our first appearance was at a small cafe downtown. It was the kind of place Rachel loved, reclaimed wood tables, overpriced croissants, and soft acoustic music. I knew she came there with Ethan sometimes after work. I'd seen the charges on our joint account. When I walked in, Lisa was already there, seated near the window. She looked effortlessly elegant, hair loose around her shoulders, a soft smile playing at her lips. I paused for a moment before joining her, taking in how poised she looked, how controlled. Right on time, she said, not looking up from her cup. You didn't tell me Rachel might actually come here. I muttered. That's why I picked it. She smirked. You'd be surprised how small this city really is. We spent the next hour talking, not about revenge, not about Rachel or Ethan, but about everything else. The weather, the book she was pretending to read, even music. It was strange, easy, almost normal. But the tension beneath it was always there, a current neither of us wanted to name. Halfway through my second cup of coffee, I saw her. Rachel. She walked in wearing sunglasses, her hair tied back, that same fake professional smile plastered on her face. And right beside her, Ethan. Of course. Lisa noticed before I even said a word. Don't look, she murmured, stirring her coffee. Just follow my lead. She leaned forward, close enough that I caught the scent of her perfume again. She touched my wrist lightly, a simple gesture, but deliberate. Her eyes met mine, soft and full of something that looked dangerously like affection. I didn't have to fake much. I felt Rachel's presence before I saw her reaction. That small shift in the air when someone realizes they're being watched. I turned my head just enough to catch her reflection in the glass. She'd frozen mid-step, her hand tightening around Ethan's arm. Bingo, Lisa whispered. We stayed another 15 minutes, laughing just a little too loud, leaning in a little too close. Every time Rachel glanced over, Lisa would smile at me like we shared a secret. By the time we stood to leave, Rachel's jaw was set in that way I knew all too well, the look she got when she lost control of a situation. Outside, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Jesus, I muttered. That was effective. Lisa finished. Yeah, that's one word for it. She looked pleased, but her smile softened. You handled it well. You didn't overplay it. I wasn't playing, I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes lingered on me for a moment. Good, she said quietly. Keep it that way. Over the next 2 weeks, we escalated. A few subtle photos, her hand brushing mine across a cafe table, a reflection in a wine glass that made us look like we were sharing a private joke. She posted one of them, the caption vague enough to sound innocent, but pointed enough to cut. Sometimes the right company makes all the difference. Rachel didn't comment, but I knew she'd seen it. That night, she came home tense, quieter than usual. I could feel her eyes on me at dinner, studying me like she was trying to solve an equation that no longer made sense. Rough day? I asked, keeping my tone casual. She hesitated. Just busy. MHM. We ate in silence. I didn't push. The silence did the talking for me. A few days later, Lisa and I took it a step further. We accidentally showed up at the same restaurant Rachel and Ethan frequented, one of those sleek, dimly lit places downtown with an open kitchen and overpriced steak. The hostess recognized Lisa instantly. "Table for two." "Yes," Lisa said smoothly. "By the window, please." We hadn't even sat down before Rachel and Ethan arrived. I caught the flicker of shock cross his face before he masked it with that fake corporate grin. Rachel, though, her reaction was pure venom. Lisa saw it too. She smiled sweetly. "Don't stare," she whispered. "They'll come to us." And they did. Halfway through the meal, Rachel excused herself from her table. She passed us on the way to the restroom, her perfume heavy, her movements stiff. When she glanced my way, I met her eyes for the first time in days. "Evening," I said simply. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She just nodded and walked off. Lisa grinned. "Perfect. She's going to ask questions," I said. "That's the point. The more she asks, the more Ethan lies. And when she catches him in one, she'll realize what it feels like." I finished. Lisa's hand brushed mine again. "Exactly." By dessert, I was starting to believe in her strategy, not just because it worked, but because of how Rachel looked at me when we left. It wasn't guilt anymore. It was jealousy. And beneath that jealousy was fear. When we stepped out into the night, Lisa stopped under the streetlight. "You saw it, didn't you?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "I saw it." She smiled, softer this time. "Then we're just getting started." We stood there for a moment, the glow of the city reflecting in her eyes. Something about the silence between us shifted, less like partners in revenge, more like two people teetering on the edge of something neither of us could name. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel broken. I felt alive, dangerous. And Rachel? She finally looked like the one falling apart. It started with late-night calls. At first, they were strategy. Logistics. "Let's meet at this place. Here's what I want the next photo to look like." Did Rachel say anything today? But then the topics drifted, and the time got later. By the third week of our arrangement, Lisa and I were on the phone most nights past midnight. Sometimes talking, sometimes just listening to each other breathe. I told her things I hadn't told anyone. How Rachel used to make me feel like I was enough, until she didn't. How I used to surprise her with flowers for no reason. How she stopped touching me, little by little, until it felt like I was invisible in my own home. Lisa listened always, never interrupting. And when she did speak, her voice had this low warmth to it, like she wasn't just hearing me, she understood. She told me about Ethan, how he was magnetic at first, how people gravitated to him, always laughing at his jokes, how she once felt lucky to be the woman on his arm, until she realized he saw women the way he saw neckties, interchangeable. "You ever feel like you were just a placeholder?" she asked one night. "Every day for the last 6 months," I said. There was a pause, a long one. And then she whispered, "Me too." After that, the calls got quieter, more personal. We started sharing songs we loved, books we remembered, little pieces of ourselves we'd buried for the sake of our marriages. And I started looking forward to her voice more than I wanted to admit. Our next appearance was at a bookstore Rachel used to drag me to on lazy Sundays. Lisa picked it intentionally. She said nostalgia made the blade sink deeper. We weren't holding hands. We didn't kiss. But we were laughing. I'd forgotten what that felt like. Not the kind of laughter you fake to keep up appearances, but real, gut-level laughter. She made me feel seen, like I wasn't just a betrayed husband, but someone who still had value. Halfway through browsing, she turned to me holding a hardcover. "You ever read this?" I looked at the cover. Norwegian Wood by Murakami. College. Made me feel things I didn't know I could at the time. She smiled. "That's exactly what it's supposed to do." There was a long pause, not awkward but charged. She wasn't just looking at me. She was seeing me, really seeing. And I realized I'd stepped over a line in my heart, even if nothing physical had happened. The pretend was starting to feel real. That scared the hell out of me. The next day, Rachel asked me if I was happy. We were sitting at dinner, frozen pizza, wine she'd barely touched. She stared at me from across the table like she was trying to measure my temperature. "What kind of question is that?" I asked, playing dumb. She shrugged. "Just curious. You've seemed different lately." I held her gaze. "Maybe I am." Her lips pressed into a line. She didn't follow up, but something shifted in her posture, and for the rest of the night, I caught her glancing at me when she thought I wasn't looking. It was working. She was unraveling. But so was I. That weekend, Lisa invited me over. Not for a photo. Not for a public stunt. Just to talk. She said she had a new idea for the plan, but when I got there, she didn't bring it up. Instead, she cooked. I wasn't trying to seduce you, she said with a crooked smile when she saw my expression. Just tired of eating alone. We sat on her balcony, dinner plates in our laps, watching the lights of the city flicker below. It was quiet. Intimate in a way I hadn't felt in years. I missed this, I admitted. What? Someone caring enough to ask how my day was. Someone laughing at my stupid stories. Just warmth. She didn't answer at first, but after a while, she said softly, I missed that too. We sat in silence again, and then I looked at her, really looked at her. Not as an ally, not as a co-conspirator, but as a woman. A woman who was strong, smart, guarded, but still vulnerable. And I realized I was in trouble, because what started as an act wasn't an act anymore. We didn't kiss that night, but when I left, she hugged me, a real, grounding embrace. No pretending, just quiet, aching connection. Her hands lingered on my back, and I found mine doing the same. When we pulled away, neither of us said anything, but we both knew. The lines were gone. Back home, I lay in bed while Rachel showered. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, guilt clawing at my ribs. What was I doing? I hadn't touched Lisa. Not in the way Rachel had touched Ethan. Not in the way that shattered us. But still, I felt like I was betraying something. And maybe that was the moment I realized. The marriage had already died. I'd just been trying to resuscitate a ghost. Rachel came out of the bathroom in a towel, hair dripping. She didn't look at me as she got dressed. Didn't say goodnight. She just climbed into bed and turned away from me. And for the first time, I didn't feel the sting of rejection. I felt freedom. Because I was finally seeing what love wasn't. And maybe, just maybe, what it could be again. It was Lisa's idea, of course. This is where it all comes to a head, she said, sliding a sleek black envelope across the cafe table. Inside was an invitation, embossed, minimalist, upscale. A formal company gala. Ethan's company. Which, by extension, meant Rachel would be there too. He always brings her, Lisa added, sipping her tea with deliberate calm. She loves these things. The lights, the eyes on her, the chance to play the perfect couple. But this year, we're going. Together? I asked, still staring at the invitation like it might burn me. Lisa leaned in slightly. Jason, we've been planting seeds for weeks. It's time to harvest. I hesitated. I knew what showing up together would mean. Not just for them, but for us. There would be no pretending we didn't know. No room left for ambiguity. Are you sure this isn't too much? She tilted her head, a soft smile forming. Too much would be burning the building down. This is just a spark. The night of the gala, I wore a charcoal suit. I hadn't touched it since a friend's wedding 2 years ago. It still smelled faintly of dust and cologne. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Stronger, colder, awake. Lisa arrived in a deep emerald dress that caught the light with every step. Her hair was pinned up, loose strands curling around her neck. When she stepped into my apartment to wait for the car, I actually forgot how to speak for a second. You clean up well, she said, eyes scanning me like an artist inspecting her own creation. I managed to smile. You're something else. She looked at me, her expression shifting slightly. You don't have to pretend with me, Jason. I'm not pretending, I said. She held my gaze for a long, breathless second. Then she looked away. Let's go. The ballroom was a cascade of glass and golden laughter. Waiters weaved between guests with flutes of champagne, and a string quartet played something expensive in the corner. We entered like we belonged there. No hesitation, no glancing around. Lisa's arm threaded through mine, our bodies close, like we'd been doing this for years. The effect was immediate. Ethan saw us first. His jaw didn't drop, not quite, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. Recognition, confusion, then something sharper, panic. Rachel turned next. She was radiant as always, but the confidence she wore like armor faltered the moment her gaze landed on me. Her smile froze. Her eyes widened, just slightly. And for the first time since this entire mess started, I felt like I had the upper hand. We didn't approach them. That wasn't the point. We danced. Lisa's body moved effortlessly with mine, the music wrapping around us like silk. Her hand pressed against my shoulder, her lips dangerously close to my ear as she whispered, "They're watching." I didn't need to look to know she was right. "I feel like I'm in a dream," I murmured. "No, Jason. You're finally awake." The tension between us wasn't fake anymore. Every step, every glance, it was real, electric and dangerous. A chemistry born from pain, from partnership, from something we hadn't dared define yet. Between dances, we laughed, touched hands, took a photo, not for social media, just for us. A moment frozen in time, right before everything changed. Then, without warning, Rachel approached. "Jason," she said, her voice brittle. I turned slowly. Her smile was too bright, her eyes sharp. "Rachel," I said, like I was greeting a coworker from another life. She looked at Lisa, then back at me. "Didn't know you'd be here." Lisa answered for me. "We got a last-minute invite. Seemed like a fun night." Rachel nodded, jaw clenched. "You too close now." Lisa smiled sweetly. "You could say that." I didn't say a word. Just watched the color drain from Rachel's face. Ethan joined a moment later, placing a possessive hand on Rachel's back. He tried to smile at Lisa. She didn't return it. "Well," Rachel said, her voice cracking just slightly. "Enjoy the party." And just like that, they retreated, visibly shaken. We stood still for a few moments after they left. "That went well," I said. Lisa's expression shifted, softer now. "You okay?" I should be gloating, but mostly I just feel finished, like a door's closing. She nodded, then took my hand. "Let's leave. The part that matters is already done." The elevator was quiet. I don't know who leaned first. Maybe it was me. Maybe her. Maybe the tension just snapped and neither of us wanted to be the one to resist it anymore. There was no planning in the way our bodies moved. No revenge. Just something raw. Something born of being seen, finally, after months, no, years, of being invisible. Her hand on my chest. My fingers tracing the curve of her back. She kissed me like she meant it. And I kissed her back like I'd forgotten who I was. We didn't go home that night. Not separately, at least. And for the first time since Rachel broke me, I didn't think about her at all. The morning after the gala, I woke before Lisa. Her head rested on my chest, her breath steady against my skin, her fingers still curled lightly near my ribs. Sunlight leaked through the curtains of her apartment, cutting across the sheets like truth slicing through denial. It should have felt complicated, messy, wrong. Instead, it felt calm, like the storm had passed, and this was the silence left behind. I watched her sleep for a few minutes, caught in that fragile space between guilt and peace. A week ago, I wouldn't have imagined being here. Now I couldn't imagine not being here. But the silence didn't last. By 8:14 a.m., my phone was vibrating on the nightstand. 3 missed calls, all from Rachel. Then a text. "We need to talk. Now." I didn't respond. Not right away. I wasn't ready to re-enter that world. Lisa stirred beside me, blinking into the morning. "Is it her?" she asked, voice still soft with sleep. "Yeah." She rolled onto her back, staring at the ceiling. Let her wait. I made it home by mid-morning. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that screams something is wrong. Rachel was waiting on the couch, arms crossed, legs jittering. She looked different, less polished. Makeup smudged, hair still damp from a rushed shower. She stood the moment I walked in. "Where were you last night?" she asked, voice tight. I set my keys on the counter. "Out." "Out where?" I met her eyes. "Does it matter?" Her lips parted, stunned by my indifference. "You didn't come home, Jason." I crossed the room slowly, not bothering to remove my jacket. "And what? That's new to this relationship. Or does your concern only count when it's me disappearing without explanation?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. "I saw you," she said after a beat. "At the gala. With her." I didn't deny it. "Yeah, you did." Rachel stepped closer. "Are you seeing her?" There it was. The irony. Thick, bitter. "You mean like how you've been seeing Ethan?" Her face twisted, cheeks flushing with shame or rage. "Maybe both." "It's not the same," she snapped. "Why not?" "Because," she stopped herself. "Because I didn't mean to hurt you." I let out a breathless laugh. "And I did." Silence. Then she dropped her voice. "Did you sleep with her?" I didn't answer. That was all she needed. She stepped back like I'd hit her. Her face cracked, just slightly. And for the first time since this all began, she looked like the one betrayed. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated. Instead, all I felt was tired. "You lied to me," I said, quieter now. "Over and over. You let me question my worth, my sanity. You turned our marriage into something disposable, Don't act like I'm the villain for finding something real in the wreckage you left behind. Rachel sank onto the armrest of the couch, her posture crumpling. I didn't think you'd move on so fast. No, I said. You didn't think I could. A few hours later, Lisa texted me. Ethan showed up. He knows. Wants to talk. I called her. What did you say? I told him if he wants a conversation, he can start by admitting the affair. Out loud. To my face. Think he'll do it. Lisa hesitated. He looked like a man trying to make a last-minute save, which means he's already drowning. That evening, Lisa came over. No makeup. Hair tied back. She wore a hoodie and jeans, and somehow she looked more like herself than ever. We sat on the porch with 2 cups of coffee that went cold fast. The sun was starting to set, streaking the sky with bruised colors. They're both scrambling, she said, eyes fixed on the horizon. Rachel texted you. Ethan begged me to meet for lunch tomorrow. Let them panic, I said. She glanced at me. And us. That question hung in the air longer than it should have. I looked at her, really looked. The strength in her eyes. The quiet grace in how she carried pain. The honesty I hadn't realized I'd been craving. We weren't part of the plan, I said softly. But neither were they. She gave a small nod. This started as strategy, Jason. Just tactics. But now it's something else. We didn't define it. We didn't need to. The silence between us said enough. But still, we both knew there were conversations waiting to be had. Closure waiting to be claimed. Wounds we'd have to choose to either let heal or keep picking open. I don't want to hurt anyone else, she said after a long pause. You didn't, I said. They did. She nodded, but didn't smile. That night, I slept without tossing. Not in her bed. Not in Rachel's. Just mine. Alone. And it felt like I'd claimed something back. Not revenge. Not justice. Myself. We needed to get away. Lisa suggested the cabin. Her parents owned it, tucked into the woods about 2 hours outside the city. It had no Wi-Fi, no cell service, and the kind of silence that felt like stepping into a memory. She said they hadn't used it in years. We packed light. Just a weekend bag each. No laptops. No plans. Just space. We didn't say we needed to clear our heads. We didn't talk about Rachel or Ethan as we drove. We just let the road unwind beneath us, a ribbon stretching towards something we didn't know how to define. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy but honest, like we both knew what was coming. The cabin was small, rustic, the kind of place where the floor creaked when you breathed and the windows told stories when the wind moved through the trees. That first night, we made dinner together, canned soup and grilled cheese on an old gas stove. We ate on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars bloom overhead. I hadn't seen a night sky that clear in years. Lisa looked over at me, her expression unreadable. You ever wonder what would have happened if none of this had happened? I thought about that for a second. I think I would have kept lying to myself, I said. Telling myself I was happy. Telling myself Rachel still loved me. Maybe even believing it. Lisa nodded slowly. Yeah, me too. A pause. Then she asked the question I think we both had been circling for weeks. Do you ever wonder if we're just collateral damage? 2 broken people clinging to each other because we don't know how to be alone? Her voice didn't shake, but it was softer than usual. Vulnerable. Real. I stared at my half-empty mug. The steam rising from it disappeared into the cold. I've thought about it, I admitted. And I looked at her. I don't feel broken when I'm with you. She didn't speak right away. Then she whispered, that's the first time I felt something good in a long time. Later, we sat in front of the old fireplace, wrapped in a shared blanket. No fire, just warmth from each other. My shoulder against hers. Her hand near mine. I said it without thinking. I'm scared. Lisa turned slightly. Of what? That this isn't real. That it's just revenge dressed up as connection. That once the dust settles, we'll realize we were just passengers on the same wreckage. She didn't laugh. Didn't dismiss it. Instead, she reached over and placed her hand over mine. You want to know what I'm scared of? She said. I nodded. That this is the only real thing I've felt in years, and I don't know if I deserve it. That silenced us both. We stayed like that for a long time. Eventually, I broke the quiet. Lisa, this started as something calculated. But the way I feel about you now. She stopped me with a look. I know, she said. But if this is real, it has to be real for the right reasons. I understood. We couldn't build something new on the rubble of something unresolved. The next morning, We sat at the edge of the lake behind the cabin, feet dangling off the dock. The water was cold and clear, the reflection of the trees rippling with every breeze. "I need to know something," she said, her voice quieter than usual. "Anything." She looked at me, not guarded, not performing. "Just Lisa. Would you still be here if Rachel hadn't cheated?" I didn't answer right away. Because the truth wasn't easy. It wasn't romantic. But it was honest. "No," I said finally. I would have still been stuck. Still trying to fix something I didn't break. Still lying to myself. She nodded. "Same." We sat in the silence after that. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It was relief. The truth had finally been said. We didn't call it love. Not yet. We didn't make promises. We didn't rush into the next thing. But we did talk, really talk. We admitted things out loud we'd only thought in private. Lisa told me how Ethan made her feel small. How every compliment came with a condition. How he made her feel like a prop in his perfect life. I told her how Rachel withdrew intimacy like a punishment. How I started measuring my self-worth and how often she acknowledged I existed. How I stopped liking the man I saw in the mirror. We didn't cry, but we did sit close. And when I held her later that night, no performance, no plan, it was the first time I felt like I was building something again. Not from vengeance. Not from loss. From choice. On the drive home, Lisa reached for my hand. Just held it. No words. We stopped for coffee halfway back. A small roadside diner. No one knew us there. No one watched. No one cared. And yet, it felt more honest than anything I'd felt in years. We sat across from each other in a booth with chipped vinyl seats and too much sugar on the table. Lisa looked at me and said, "I'm not ready to jump into something." "I know," I said. "Me neither. But I want to try." I smiled. "Me too." And it wasn't some grand declaration. It didn't need to be. Sometimes, the softest truths are the most important. I was halfway through a morning meeting when I saw the email. Subject line: unprofessional conduct, urgent review required. Sender: HR. I opened it, heart already climbing into my throat. There was no text in the body, just a PDF attachment. When I clicked it open, my stomach flipped. Photos of me and Lisa at the gala, on the porch, even one of us walking out of the cabin the morning after. Private moments. Moments no one but us should have had access to. Attached was a complaint. A formal accusation of inappropriate behavior and a potential conflict of interest involving a partner of a competing firm. Ethan. I didn't even have to ask. It reeked of desperation. Of petty vengeance masked as professionalism. I called Lisa immediately. No greeting. Just 2 words. "He did it." "I know," she said. Her voice was steady. Too steady. I got hit too. Photos. Screen grabs. Even a voice message. Apparently me calling you something real counts as grounds for moral clause review. "You okay?" I asked. "I've been waiting for this," she said. "But he has no idea what he just started." Lisa didn't get angry like most people do. She got precise. Focused. Surgical. By the end of the day, she'd compiled her own folder, triple the size of Ethan's. I saw it for myself. Emails, text threads, timestamps from hotel bookings, even a screen recording of a shared calendar Ethan forgot to lock. The piece de resistance? A recorded voicemail from Ethan, drunk, late at night, where he slurred something about how hard it is to lie to 2 women at once. Lisa didn't send it to HR. Not right away. She walked it in herself. While I was still sitting in my director's office trying to explain how photos of me having a coffee with a woman didn't constitute a scandal, Lisa was downtown, calm as ever, sliding the entire packet across a conference table. "I'd like to make a formal complaint," she told them. "Not just about the affair. About how long this company ignored the signs." The fallout came fast. By Friday, Ethan was suspended pending investigation. By Monday, he was gone. They called it breach of conduct. But the reality was simpler. He got caught. Rachel wasn't spared either. Lisa had made sure of that. One of the voice memos in her folder? Rachel and Ethan in her office after hours, laughing about being careful and keeping the lights low. Company property. Company time. By the end of the week, Rachel was demoted. Transferred. Reputation cratered. When she came home, she didn't slam doors or throw accusations. She sat at the kitchen table in silence. I stood across from her. "You did this," she said quietly. "No," I replied. "You did this. I just stopped covering for it." She looked up at me then, and for the first time in months, I didn't see pride or denial or excuses. I saw defeat. Not the kind that makes you feel sorry. The kind that confirms it's over. Lisa and I met for dinner 2 nights later. Not to celebrate, just to breathe. We sat in the back of a quiet bistro, hands wrapped around glasses of wine neither of us touched much. I didn't think it would feel like this, she said. Like what? Empty. I nodded. I thought I'd feel vindicated. Instead, I just feel done. We didn't smile. Didn't toast. There was nothing glamorous about it. Just closure. The kind that doesn't come in fireworks, but in the quiet end of a long chapter. I have to leave the company, Lisa said after a pause. I figured. It's not that I'm ashamed, she continued, but I want a clean start. I don't want to be the woman who exposed Ethan forever. Where will you go? She shrugged. Maybe back to school. Maybe a startup. Something smaller. Honest. I smiled. I think you'd be brilliant at that. She looked at me then, and for a second, we weren't just two people who'd been burned. We were something new. You came through this with your dignity intact, she said. I shook my head. Not untouched, though. No, but maybe that's okay. The next morning, Rachel left. She didn't cry, didn't plead, just packed a suitcase and drove away. There was no big speech, no final blow-up. She just left the key on the counter and texted me when she was gone. Was any of it ever real? I didn't reply. What was I supposed to say? That I didn't know anymore? Instead, I turned off my phone and stepped outside. The sun was rising. The world kept turning. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I wasn't chasing closure. I already had it. I didn't think Rachel could look small. Not in the way that mattered. She was always poised, crisp lines, calculated posture, a woman who could smile through a slap. But when I saw her that last time, sitting across from HR like a defendant without a lawyer, she looked like something had finally caught up to her. Consequence. Ethan was already gone. Terminated with cause. Word traveled fast. Emails wiped. Desk cleaned out. Security footage reviewed. When a man falls from grace, it rarely takes long. Rachel's reckoning came slower. But it came. Lisa's folder made sure of that. The company couldn't fire her outright. No hard rule had been broken. But they could shift her. Strip her of her team. Her authority. Her status. She was reassigned to a side office with no windows, under a new manager who had no patience for entitlement. She emailed me once. Short. Cold. Congratulations. You got what you wanted. I didn't reply, because she was wrong. I hadn't wanted this. Not really. What I wanted was the truth. To stop feeling like a passenger in my own life. What I wanted was peace. And now, finally, it was starting to find me. Lisa and I met one last time at the cafe where everything had started. The first fake date. The first smile we shared just to draw blood from someone else. Only this time, there was no performance. She wore no makeup. I wore no armor. We just sat. Two people on the other side of the storm. You're really leaving? I asked. She nodded. I accepted an offer out of state. Small consulting firm. Quiet town. I tried to smile. Sounds like a good reset. It is. She paused. But it's not running. I need to know that. I'm not running from Ethan. I'm just walking away from who I had to be with him. I understood that. Deeply. She stirred her coffee. And you? I shrugged. I'm not sure yet. I thought revenge would make me feel alive again. Turns out it just reminded me how dead I'd been. Her eyes met mine. You're not dead, Jason. I'm getting there. The air between us felt heavy. Not with tension, not anymore, but with truth. The kind that doesn't need dressing up. You ever think about what we were? I asked. She took a long breath. All the time. But maybe that's the problem. What do you mean? Lisa looked down at her cup. We started as a response to pain. I don't want to become someone's reaction. I want to be their choice. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. I don't know what's next, I said. But I know I want to figure it out without pretending. No games. No lies. Just honesty. She smiled then, small but real. That's the first time you've said something that sounds like beginning, not ending. Rachel left the house within a week. We didn't divide things with screaming or lawyers. She didn't contest anything. I think part of her was too proud to fight, and another part was too tired. I kept the house. Not because it held good memories, but because it was mine now. No more ghosts walking its halls. Just me, learning to breathe again. The first night I slept there alone, I walked into every room and opened every window. Let it all out. Let it all go. It was quiet. Not empty. Free. Lisa texted me a few days before she moved. Leaving Friday. Got a place with trees in the backyard. And actual stars. I smiled when I read it. Then typed out a reply, then erased it. Typed another. Erased that too. Finally, I just wrote, "You'll be amazing. Keep the porch light on." Her response came a minute later. Always. Rachel never apologized. Not directly. But she sent a letter, handwritten, left in the mailbox after she'd already moved out. The envelope was unsealed. Inside was a single page. "I don't know who I became. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just hope you find something better than what I gave you. Because you deserve that. Even if I didn't." I folded it once and placed it in the drawer with old receipts and spare keys. Not as a keepsake. As a reminder. Of what I survived. Of what I will never accept again. A week later, I passed by that same bookstore where Lisa first teased me with a Murakami novel. I went inside. Bought it. That night, I sat on my back porch, wrapped in an old blanket, reading the first chapter. The air was cool, clean. The kind of night that used to ache. But this time it didn't. It just felt still. 6 months. It's strange how quickly that time can pass when you're no longer carrying someone else's weight. Strange, too, how silence changes from something heavy to something healing. 6 months ago, I was a man drowning in betrayal. Now, I was packing for a trip with the woman who helped pull me from the wreckage. Lisa. She was standing across the room, folding clothes into a worn duffel bag, her hair tied up, sunglasses perched on her head, even though we hadn't left yet. She looked like freedom. "This is everything you're bringing?" I asked, motioning to her small bag. "I travel light," she said, grinning. "Not dragging the past around anymore, remember?" I smiled and zipped my own bag. "Where are we even going?" "I told you, it's a surprise." Lisa was like that now. Spontaneous. Not reckless, just untethered. She'd traded her high-powered job and skyline apartment for a smaller firm in a quieter city, but her world had expanded. It was mine that had finally caught up. When she first moved, we gave each other space. Intentional space. It wasn't an ending, just a pause, a test. Was this real, or just the fallout of pain? It didn't take long to find the answer. We started calling every day, then visiting, then talking about nexts. Not revenge, not recovery, just what came after. We rebuilt slowly, deliberately. No fireworks, just a steady warmth. Now here we were, 2 suitcases and a full tank of gas away from something new. We loaded the car just before noon. Lisa tossed her bag into the trunk and slid into the passenger seat with the ease of someone who'd done this before. Not just road trips, but this life with me. We were about to pull out when my phone buzzed. I glanced at it without thinking. Rachel. First message in months. Was any of it ever real? Just 7 words. I stared at the screen for a moment. Not angry, not bitter. Just reflective. Lisa noticed. "You okay?" I nodded, turned the phone off without replying, and dropped it in the glove box. "Wrong number," I said. Lisa smirked. "Good." The road opened ahead of us, long and sunlit, trees flickering past the windows like time unraveling in reverse. We played music, old playlists, new favorites. Lisa sang badly on purpose to make me laugh. I didn't know where we were headed, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't care. I wasn't chasing closure anymore. I wasn't performing a part. I was just here. With her. With myself. At a gas station a few hours in, Lisa came back to the car with 2 iced coffees and a bag of peanut M&Ms. She dropped into the passenger seat and said, "I've decided where we're going." "Oh yeah. Mountains. Somewhere high. Somewhere quiet." "Why?" She looked out the windshield, thoughtful. "Because I want to be somewhere that makes everything else feel small. Just for a little while." I smiled. "Sounds perfect." That night, we pulled into a small mountain town with 1 main street and a single blinking stoplight. We booked a room in a cozy inn with quilts on the beds and windows that opened to the sound of rustling pine. We didn't unpack. Just stepped onto the balcony and stood there, side by side, watching the last light drain from the sky. Lisa reached over and took my hand. "You ready?" she asked. I thought about it, about everything behind us. The lies. The heartbreak. The long nights wondering what went wrong. And then I looked at her. At us. "I am now," I said. Later, under a sky bruised with stars, we lay in bed together, not tangled with urgency or tension, but with ease. She traced circles on my chest with her finger and asked, "Do you still think about her?" "Sometimes," I said honestly. but not the way I used to. Not with longing. Just like a closed chapter. Lisa nodded. I think about him too. And then I remember how small he made me feel. You're not small, I said. You never were. She leaned in and kissed me. Slow. Certain. And this time, it wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about what we'd lost. It was about what we'd found. The next morning, we woke up early. Packed our bags. Checked out. We had no itinerary, no deadlines. Just a map, a tank full of gas, and a horizon that didn't look like anyone else's expectations. Lisa handed me coffee and grinned. Where to next? I looked at the road, the sky, her. And I said, let's just keep going.